God.
Mission sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
It's astonishing.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Three, 2, 1, action.
Hello everyone, thank you very much for joining us. We've got something a little bit different to what we normally do this week. Hopefully the first in a bit of a series. And I am joined by a very good friend of ours, ex-colleague of ours. You're wearing a different shirt today, Luke, but this is Luke Curtis. Looks a bit different than last time he was on this channel. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me back. It's nice to be back here. Yeah, I was saying a minute ago that it's always nice. The culture here, the atmosphere, people is great. So it's nice to be welcome back. So warmly, thank you.
It's great to have you back in the building. It really is. So what's your new role? What do you do?
So I am the digital imaging events manager. So I've taken over from a chap called Mark Baber, who done this. He's been on your channel previously before.
Yes, indeed. Great guy.
Yeah, fantastic guy. Big shoes to fill. So my role is basically to manage all of our kind of experiential marketing events. So from trade shows to things like this to small sort of intimate workshops, and just pop people in front of our cameras and make them engaging and exciting and show them the technologies. And so that's sort of my role. And it scales from everything to just talking to you here all the way through to events like the photography show, which are huge sort of like 4 or 5 day long events. So yeah, very varied.
And was pretty much your first month in the new job, right?
Yeah.
Into the deep end.
Yeah, I started in December, and obviously December was like Christmas time, so pretty busy. And then the show was in March, so kind of had to like hit the ground running sort of thing. So yeah, that was a baptism of fire, so to speak. But the show went well, which was fantastic. So yeah, it was pretty exciting. A good way to kind of get chucked in the deep end and sort of learn on the job.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been saying right from when I heard about your new role that we should be doing something like this together on the channel, and so it's great to finally make this happen. So this little series that we've sort of come up with together of breaking down the sector and the customers that use Sony into these. It's really hard to group into segments in the current market in 2024. We all do everything. Yeah. And so the old, more traditional sort of pillars of content don't really apply anymore. All of our customers are jacks of all trades. They do all sorts of different things. And so instead of focusing on who the customers are, we've sort of tried to focus on the kinds of styles of work. So we're going to do some of the obvious ones with this. We're going to do weddings. We're going to do wildlife. You'll see a few more of these pop up over the next couple of months. But what I wanted to do with this first one, when we were chatting about it, we came up with these kind of two alternative definitions for professional video creators. More traditional video professionals, which we're going to cover later, which are, I'd say quite a lot of our customers fit into the people who work freelance for multiple different clients, one day after the next. On a Monday you might be working for a fashion brand, and then on the Wednesday you'll be working for a food company, and then you'll be doing an event on the Friday, and a huge variety of stuff for a huge variety of different people. And you can group in small production companies into that and all the rest of it. And then there's this group, which we're going to talk about today, which didn't really know what to call, so we've called video content creators, which is, we've defined this as anyone who makes video for themselves. Now, in the old way of thinking about this would be YouTubers or influencers, and they definitely still apply.
Correct.
But sort of, I'm thinking bigger picture than that. I'd include my own work for ProAV in that. Anyone that is making video content at a professional level for the same sort of person every single time. Yeah. Like, I think of ProAV as my client. I'm making videos for ProAV again and again and again. Yeah. You could, someone doing running their own yoga company might be making some of their own content again and again and again.
Coffee people shop, like that, right? You name it. There's so many small businesses out there that are now pushed to create content for themselves. They need devices that are able to be easy enough to sort of create content. So yeah, it's so broad. I mean, you could pick any industry and find someone that needs to produce content for himself. So yeah,
absolutely. So it's a hard ask to sort of say what kit works for this, because there's such a wide spectrum of people and styles of work here. But I do think Sony has one of the most complete lineups for that kind of customer. And it's also a bit of a point of contention, a bit of a point for me, a bugbear of mine, that the ZV line is so promoted as for vlogging
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff, because it's a perfect lineup for this kind of category.
Yeah,
right?
for content creation, yeah, definitely. I think vlogging was kind of one of the early formats of video content or self-video content creation, wasn't it? It kind of it went from blogging to videoing it to this vlogging sort of genre, and it emerged, and anyone that was pointing the camera at themselves was then turned into a vlogger. But now the technologies that drive that have been seen to be able to utilize to drive market in your own business. So now these products are really like content creation products. They're kind of blending over from this vlogging world into this content creation world, and people can see the benefits. And you touched on a really important point about, it's so broad. With it being so broad, one of the key things with these products is they have to be able to do a lot. They have to be really, really, really versatile, but then also they have to be simple to use, and it's difficult to do a lot and be simple. So we've got quite, like you say, we've got quite a sort of a comprehensive range of products that they do a lot, but also are simple to use. Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we go through this, anyone watching live, leave any comments or any questions that you may have, and I'll weave them into the conversation as we go. But let's start by chatting through,
Cool.
some of the structure for today.
So just keeping it really, really, really simple. We've touched on 3 sort of segments here. So social media influencers would be one. So people that are on social media, creating content for themselves. Predominantly this is that kind of like vlogger market. Let's start creating content for themselves to go on social media, and then moving on from there is the points that you touched on. So we've got our internal marketing teams. So for instance, now big corporations, they have their own internal teams. They might not be, once upon a time they might have outsourced that work somewhere else. And with that, a huge cost. They've now decided to bring that in-house, so they need a range of products that allow them to do it very simple, and also can be used between a skill that have variable skill sets. There could be people that are very, very skilled, people that are very new to it, so they need products that are pretty easy to pick up and get going with. So internal marketing teams, and then also probably the really important one is small business owners. So small businesses, marketing is absolutely key. You need products that will allow you to create video content to be able to drive your business, because most small businesses will be on social media and will be trying to attract new clients through social media. Absolutely. Video is the driving force behind social media, so therefore it makes sense to have a product that allows you to create compelling video content to sort of push your sort of business. So those are the 3 that we were going to touch on.
And we also the price point that a lot of this kit is at, it is feasible for the vast majority of small business owners to actually include it as part of their essential kit to run their business.
Correct. And it's also scalable. So for instance, you start off your small business, you've got a coffee shop, for instance. You're grinding your own you're roasting your own coffee, grinding your own coffee. You start off really small. You might buy something like the ZV-1 as a starting point. As you start to build your business and you start to get more intricate in terms of the content you're creating, you can then scale that up. You could then move to something like an E10, so an interchangeable lens kind of like content creation system, or you could go to a full frame content creation like system. So you've got the ability to start off, kind of good, better, and then best, and sort of move through that progressively, which is great for any scale of business.
And I think the other thing I want to touch on while we're on this slide is the perception of experience level, because I think it's very easy, particularly for me and for a lot of our customers who are sort of experienced people in the video production world, to look at this sort of slide and go, okay, so it's for people who aren't that experienced. Yeah. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And so, like social media influencers, some of them are doing the most incredible high-level video work. They really, really are, and producing really hard to make video content. And the same for all the others.
And also, some of these social media guys, they are using a range of our products. So they'll be using things all the way from maybe like the ZV-1. So, I know a guy called Constantine. He runs a YouTube channel, produces his own content. He runs everything from a ZV-1 all the way through to FX6. So his skill level in terms of producing content is so broad. But for, the quick turnaround stuff where he needs multiple different cameras that are easy to use, the ZV-1 is the right product for that. Yeah. But then for the more complex stuff he's doing that he's going to need to grade, and he wants to do complex editing too, and he wants a file that's going to be resilient enough to be pulled apart in the back end, he would obviously be using things like an FX6. Yep. So you're very true in that respect. They're often kind of seen as, they're not going to be good enough to kind of be used as you progress, but they're so feature rich, and as we've developed with the technologies, the newer ones have got even more features in them. There's so many quirky things in there that make it fantastic and easy to produce content, but also make it scalable. You know, you can start off knowing nothing, but then also you can integrate into equipment when you know quite a fair bit.
Yeah, and that is a perfect example with Constantine of why this is so hard to define. Like technically, like, you know, the screenshot there of the let's assume she's running I don't know who
YouTube channel
it is, but a YouTube channel on, I don't know, beauty tips or something. Like that person, and then Constantine who jumps between FX6 and you know, putting those in not just the same category of what everything we're talking about here, but also the same pillar there of social media influencers. And so it's so hard to define this category. Definitely.
And I think there's probably maybe a bit of snobbery as well, sort of in the industry. Like, you know, your top end video makers will look at a product like that and go, oh, you know, it's not going to be good enough for me to be able to put it to work. But there are really good examples of, you know, high end video content creators using these pieces of equipment to integrate into, you know, what they're doing, you know, and they're producing really, you know, complex pieces of content. And these products fit really well into them. So,
absolutely. And also, I think there's also a bit of a move at the moment, a bit of a culture of embracing authenticity, especially as we move towards the world of AI and how content gets more and more easier to make. We are noticing a little bit of, not a backlash, everyone loves very highly post-produced content and advertising and all the rest of it, but there's certainly an embracing of content that feels really authentic, and part of that is its production value and the kind of camera that is used for it. You know, slightly less shallow depth of field and all the rest of it. It's actually becoming a bit more in fashion with you want it to feel a bit more authentic and
kind of a bit off the cuff and flowy and stuff like that, not heavily overproduced in certain ways, because I think, like you say, it's you know, sort of it's credibility again, is it? We're so used to kind of being oversaturated in that social media world. It's now like we want to see things that we can believe are real. We're not being, you know, sort of tricked through like heavy production stuff. And if you've got a camera pointing at your face and you're transitioning through different spaces, it's like, okay, cool, this is this person telling me this now, sort of live, and it's good.
Absolutely. Cool, let's crack on.
Cool. So so we covered those, you know, we've covered those three, which are probably the key three, you know, who these cameras are designed for. And I've got a couple of examples of content creators that I've just pulled off. Look, we work with quite closely. Just to give you an example of sort of the scale of them. Now, I'll start with Jason Vong in the middle. So he's a well-known YouTuber. You know, he uses Sony. In terms of his Sony kit, he uses everything from the ZV all the way through to the FX3, the FX30. You know, as an example of someone who produces high-end quality videos, but also uses a range of our products, that's a great example there. So if you are a high-end video producer and you're not convinced in terms of what these products can do, particularly in the ZV range, check out what Jason does. It's a really good example, you know, in terms of his understanding of video production and how he can use these pieces of equipment within him. So he's a really good example of what we spoke about previously. And then we've also got James Matthews. So he's another video content creator we use in the UK. He produces, he does a range of stuff. So he produces content for clients, but then also produces content for himself. So he's like this real blend between, okay, is he producing videos for someone, or is he's doing both of those? So he needs products that are capable of being able to produce high-end quality work to clients, but then also to have quick turnaround and easy to use when he's filming himself. So again, he's another person that uses a broad range of our equipment and speaks really highly of the ZV range because it's simplicity. And I think when you're producing high-end work for your clients, you know, you have to give that attention to detail. When you're turning stuff around quickly for yourself, as well as doing a paid, like, kind of heavy, intensive video production job, you want something that's going to quickly be able to deliver what you need it to deliver and integrate it. So James is another good example. And then we've got Tida as well. So she's a photographer come video producer who uses our ZV range, like exactly the same. So different scale. I think hers is more heavily towards her own content, but then as she's grown as a content creator, she's now producing more work for her clients. So with that, she then has to kind of broaden her horizons in terms of the kit she use. So she would have started off the other end of the spectrum with the ZV moving into the FX range, whereas James would have probably gone from the FX range and then integrating the ZV in terms of their sort of work style. So really good examples out there of people that are using these pieces of equipment to be able to produce a range of content with a really sort of diverse product range.
Super cool and beautiful work as well.
they're all fantastic. Jason's YouTube channel is incredible, you know, in terms of his understanding of video. He really understands it. So again, if you are a high-end video producer and you're kind of thinking, oh, you know, these YouTubers are not going to be able to produce the same level of work as me, or kind of discrediting in terms of the products that they use, he's a real good example of that. And the same for James. Like, all of those produce fantastic work for clients and for themselves, and use our kit to do so.
Fantastic.
So moving on from there, we're kind of like, why? So why do these like content creation, vlogging cameras exist? And we touched on it earlier, you know, needs to be affordable, so it's scalable in terms of like your size of business, easy to use, because, you know, the people that are picking it up are going to vary in their skill set ability. And then feature rich, they've got to cover such a broad spectrum of capabilities. They have to be feature rich, and then produce high quality content. You know, there's no point being feature rich and easy to use if you can't produce great video content. So these guys will be able to produce 4K content and things like that. So you're not limited by, you know, one of these ZV products or these vlogging products. You're still able to produce good quality video content that's, you know, kind of going to stand. You know, you can stick it on YouTube and places like that, and it's going to be in good quality. So from that, we then kind of like look at our lineup and sort of talk through the lineup and what they all have and why they all have it. So one of the things you'll notice about the ZV range particularly is in terms of format. So you won't have things like a viewfinder, as you would see on a traditional stills camera. It's going to have a flippy screen, or a sort of a screen that can flip around and allow you to do that self-piece to camera. And again, that's kind of just a way to say that that's designed for that given market. If it was a hybrid system that's going to allow you to shoot stills and move between video, like you say something like the A7 Mark IV, of course, is going to have the integration of the viewfinder, whereas this is predominantly designed for like self-filming video content, but also you can turn it around and produce content for other people. So this is the ZV-F1. So this comes with a 20mm Zeiss lens, so great quality in terms of the lens. Really feature rich, so you can use it for a webcam, live stream. That's super simple. So if you are producing content similar to this, you know, you can just plug it straight into your computer through USB-C, and you're able to record content, able to create kind of shallow depth of field, add color profiles, really simply. But also, if you wanted to, you could shoot in 4K and produce really high quality content as well. So just an example of what I can do. And then we have the ZV-1. So ZV-1 slightly different from the F in terms of what it can do from a lens perspective. So the lens is now variable, so you have that zoom in factor to it, so rather than be fixed. Pretty much, you know, loads of sort of common features within there. So we still have the webcam and live stream feature. Great features in terms of autofocus, and like, you know, for a camera like this where you're filming yourself, you don't want to worry about the complexities of making sure your subject's in focus. So this has got fantastic features that will ensure you always stay in focus, and you can also do soft skin. So if you are kind of like a beauty content creator as such, you can make your skin a little bit softer in camera before you do anything with the video. And that's, you know, predominantly someone using it might not understand how to do post-production editing. So then if it does it in camera, it makes that also simpler. So some great features there. One of the other things is a windbreaker included, so you can see that on the top there. If you're going to be talking to camera and you're out and about and you're transitional, you're going to want to be able to just make sure you've got good audio as well. There's nothing worse than filming, you know, good video content and then having terrible audio. This has a fantastic kind of microphone system on there, and the windbreaker allows it to sort of capture sound even better. If you have any questions about any of these, feel free to sort of chuck them my way. Cool. And then from there, we upgrade to the ZV-1 Mark II. So this is the upgrade from the 1 to 2. And this just has some more features on there that kind of make it, you know, it's just a step up in terms of what the technology does. Some of the integrations there that I really like is the recording lamp. So when you record yourself, the lamp comes on, you know it's recording. You can also set up to have a red box around the screen when you're looking at yourself, so you don't get that moment of doing a piece to camera and then go, oh, I didn't hit record. It's going to do that for you and make it super simple, which is great. Microphone has an enhancement on it as well, so it makes it better in terms of your audio capture. And then there's more advancements in the AI technology as well. And again, super compact, easy to use with that variable lens. So this would be, in terms of like if you're looking at something within the ZV-1 range, this is the latest within that range. So it has like the most feature rich.
So those ones are all the fixed lens sort
Correct.
of
Yeah.
point and shooty kind of cameras.
I've started a business, I need to produce content for myself, and I need to not be overcomplicated with what a camera can do. You know, you buy that's got everything it needs to get you started. You don't need to sort of kind of consider that and then a lens option and be confused, what lens do I buy? Do I need a 24? Do I need a 14? Do I need, you know, has everything built into it, so you can kind of stick an SD card in there and away you go. So just keeps it really simple in terms of setup. Very, very, very popular.
Portability is right. I mean, when it's off, the lens retracts in, and you can literally just shove it in any tiny pocket.
Got a couple of them on the table. You know, you can see in terms of like the footprint, they're absolutely tiny. So, you know, similar size to sort of a mobile phone. So you can stick them in your pocket. You can move around with them. You know, lots of people produce content on their mobile phones. Admittedly, phones are great. They're never going to be as good as a camera with a larger sensor. You know, so having this in your equipment is going to allow you to produce better content, which is what content creators and businesses want to do. You know, as I say, of course you can do stuff on your mobile phone. It's just not going to be as good as if you produce it on one of these systems here.
And it's easy to work with. You know, you've got just the stuff you talked about there, the flip out screen so you can see it. Most people filming proper content on their phone want to use the front good cameras, and so therefore you can't see the image at all. You can't see whether you're recording or what the shot even looks like.
Exactly.
You know, it's just a much easier way to work.
And some of the other features they have as well is, you know, you've got tracking and frame adjusting, which you won't have on a mobile phone. So for instance, you could set this up, you know, and then as you move, the camera will adjust and reframe you in frame, which is great because it looks like you've then got a multiple point feed. So then in terms of chopping that up and producing video content, it looks a little bit more professional. So you've got a system that's tiny, fits in your pocket, can produce 4K content and give you the example that it's shooting from a multiple camera feed like we've got here. It just adds to that production value if you want to, which is a good feature to have. And then you've also got like cinematic vlog mode as well. So that's going to give you it just adds a little bit more cinematic to it in terms of like the frame rates and stuff like that. So again, it's scalable, which is nice to have. Then we move from there into our interchangeable lens system. So this is the E10. So we have an E1, we have an E10. Difference between the two is the E10 is an APS-C size sensor, E1 is a full frame sensor. Yep. So again, it shows that scalability. We go from having kind of like a smaller sensor to an APS-C sensor, all the way through to a full frame sensor. So as you progress with these pieces of equipment, you can interchange them. If, say for instance, you're a photographer, you've shot on Sony and you decide you want to create a YouTube channel or something like that, and you go, okay, right, I've been shooting on an A7 Mark IV for years, I want to use full frame, I'm going to get a vloggy camera, do I want to get a ZV-1 or do I want to get an E1? You can get an E1 or you can get an E10 and you can interchange the lens systems you have. So that's a great way to kind of merge. So rather than kind of be limited in terms of the investment you've made on your lenses, you can integrate those in with your bodies, which is, you know, a good example of kind of like that whole Sony ecosystem. So E10, as I said, this is an APS-C sensor and has the ability to oversample in 6K, which is going to give you more detail. So you're oversampling this 6K to then produce 4K content. So that's going to give you kind of like better content. So it shows that it's scalable. If you kind of want to move into producing higher quality content for yourself or for your clients, you've got that.
And so that's the original E10 because Sony don't really discontinue the older models because there's the new E10 Mark II.
Which is what
which is not that one.
Which is what we're coming to. So there we go.
This is brand new and very, very good.
Brand new. And you've played with it, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in the shot behind me, there's a few of my shots from it playing on the screen there. There we go. Not that you can see them, they're out of focus. But yeah, it's a beautiful camera. It's a really enjoyable and fun to use little camera. Yeah.
For you, what was like the highlight points for it?
I think it's the best middle ground in the range, in my opinion. I think having the Super 35mm sensor or APS-C sensor is the best of both worlds between the image quality of the full frame ones and the convenience of the fixed lens ones. Particularly with that tiny new little kit lens that you put on the front of it, you can sort of turn it into nearly as small as the other ones. But then you stick the more fancier lenses on it, the shallower lenses on it, the faster apertures, and you're nearly up at the quality of the ZV-E1. Yeah. So as an all-rounder, this one is probably my pick of the whole ZV lineup right now.
You know, for me, that's great to hear because we spoke about, content creators that use a range of different products. Like you guys here are sport for choice in terms of what cameras you use to produce.
Yeah, we've got a lot of cameras.
and you have, you interact with a lot of different types of cameras to be able to produce the content you do, and you're able to pick this up and say, actually, it's a great camera. So it shows it is capable of being able to impress someone of your skill set, which is it's fantastic to hear. Rather than it being someone looks at it and go, oh no, it's a vloggy camera, it's not going to be able to keep up with what the demands that I would put onto it. So yeah, really, really, really good to hear that. And yeah, this is the latest, just been announced, super exciting in terms of what it can do. Even things like LUT import, so you can start adding LUTs, which is an advanced feature for video content. So lookup table is going to give you the ability to produce specific looks. So say for instance you're working with a client, they want a specific treatment to their video content, you can add this into a camera within the ZV range. So it shows that scalability, and that's something you would get in a more high profile video camera, which is fantastic. And it shows also the consideration to the back end process of editing. It's like, it's not just kind of being shot on camera, sent to a mobile phone, edited within app and then posted. Of course you can do that, but also you can really put it through its paces in something like DaVinci and kind of really test it, or Premiere or something like that, which is
definitely
which is great. It's good that you've tested it and used it and like it. Then we move from there into the E1. So this is the ultimate in content creation experience. So this is a full frame content creation / vlogging camera. So this kind of takes all of the features that we've got in all of the ZV range up until this point, and then kind of advances them with that bigger information through a full frame sensor. So for instance, some of the things you have on there is you have like your S-Log, which again is a more advanced sort of profile for recording video content, and that's something that only a real, I wouldn't say videographer, like a filmmaker or video producer would understand to know how to use. So if you didn't want to use that, you can park it and not touch it. It has built-in profiles that will produce really good quality. But if you did want to do that extensive edit and post-production, it has that facility there to do. So again, it goes back to touching on the whole scalability. You can start off at something like a ZV-1 and you go all the way through to an E10 and be able to add on sort of these more advanced features, which is great.
And so this is a full frame camera, which will, for those who aren't familiar with full frame cameras, will give you a much better image quality, give you a much shallower depth of field, so more blurred backgrounds, and will tend to give you wider dynamic range, so more information in the highlights and in the shadows, as well as richer colour. So it really expands the performance across the board in terms of image capture. And it's not just a full frame sensor, it's also the full frame sensor from Sony's sort of, I was about to say best full frame camera. That's absolutely not true. The Venice exists, but their sort of most popular professional video cameras like the FX6,
correct,
and the A7S Mark III and the FX3. In fact, we've got an FX6 and an FX3 here. Yeah. So these are some of the most popular professional video cameras in the market right now, used on all sorts of TV production and feature films now, across the board, really. And this is the same sensor,
correct,
inside a camera like this, which is fantastic.
It is mind-boggling when you actually think about it, yeah. And again, it just shows that if you are a professional video maker, don't write the ZV range off, because there is something in there that's totally scalable with shared technologies. And that's the great thing with Sony, kind of like as an ecosystem, is that shared technology throughout. You'll find features in the E1 that you'll find in the ZV-E10. There'll be limitations to some of the other features because the E1 is the holy grail of that kind of ZV lineup, but there will be shared technologies, just like there'll be shared technologies from the ZV-E1 through to the FX range. You mentioned kind of like the FX3, the FX6, and so these are professional bits of kit that are used day in, day out by sort of high-end video makers, and that shared technologies, which is it's great to see. And again, it goes back to sort of don't write off the ZV range in terms of what it's capable of doing, because there's something in there for wherever you are in terms of that scalability.
Absolutely.
And that kind of brings us to an end in terms of like looking at the lineup, all the products.
So there's a couple of technologies there which I wanted to talk about. There's the particularly two modes in there. There's the bokeh switching mode, and there's the product demonstration mode. Because I think those are sort of the best examples of what the ZV line is trying to achieve, and do the things that we all do in almost every single video when filming ourselves, but simplify it and put it right there in an easy to understand language, which is key, and at the push of a button. You able to run us through those two?
Yeah, of course. So like the product focus mode, let's say we're a photographer, we want to create a shallow depth of field to bring attention to our subject, okay? Now, traditionally, to be able to do that, there's a couple of ways you can do it. If you're going to do it in camera, you would do it through the lens, and you're going to need a lens that shoots, you want to go beyond 3.5, you want to be shooting at 2.8, 1.4, something like that to really create that shallow depth of field. You can do it through the lens itself, or you can do it through light. Now, people that are using the ZV range might not be as adept in terms of using light to create that third dimension, in terms of what they're producing. So you tend to use the lens. What the camera is basically doing is, rather than you trying to say, okay, right, I need to understand the exposure triangle and I need to be able to shoot at, f1.4, but also get my shutter speed right and kind of like my frame rate right, this is doing it for you. So you push a button, you point it at the product, and then it basically pulls it into focus and creates that shallow depth of field, which is, like you say, makes it super simple. So if you are, again, we go back to that coffee shop owner, you want to take a photo of like a coffee cup on a table with the background soft, you can do that at the push of a button without having to understand the intricacies of understanding f-stops or having lenses that are capable of producing that, because we all know lenses that shoot at 1.4, 1.8, 2.8, they're not cheap, they're heavy investment. So having a camera with an inbuilt lens system that can do that, it's real value for money.
Absolutely. So you can have your camera in full automatic mode and just with the push of one button basically go between, do I want deep depth of field or shallow depth of field? Do I want backgrounds you can see or backgrounds that are blurred?
Exactly.
And so, if you're doing say that coffee shop example, if I'm doing a piece to camera in the middle of the coffee shop with the coffee shop wide behind me, I might want deep depth focus so that you can see my beautiful coffee shop behind me. But then I want to focus just right down on what I'm saying and change setup a little bit to be behind the counter or something like that. Cool, hit the background button, blur the background off, right, time to focus on just what I'm saying now. It's such a useful little feature to have when you're working on auto at the push of a button.
A fantastic feature, and one of those features that I know particularly if I think about myself as my career as a photographer. When I first bought a camera, I bought a kit lens which shoot at f3.5, and I could only dream of shooting like shallow depth of field. And then eventually you can go and add additional lenses to your kit, and you go, okay, cool, I can now create that low depth, that shallow depth of field. Having a camera that fits in your pocket, that's super affordable, that can do it at the touch of a button, like that's incredible progress in the technology, and makes it so easy to use. And again, we go back to that kind of having products that are super broad in terms of what they can do, and the simplicity. You don't have to understand that exposure triangle to do it.
So that bokeh control is one that is quite sort of beginner focused. It's really only useful for people who are working in fully automatic mode. The product demonstration mode is maybe a bit more wider reaching than that. This is something I can see every single person that uses one of these cameras wanting to do, because it's all about the autofocus, right?
Correct.
So what does product demonstration mode do?
Correct. So product demonstration is you put it into product demonstration mode, and it's similar in terms of that shallow depth of field. And what it will basically do is when you point it at the product, it brings it into focus like as rapidly. You have to see it to believe it. It basically, the lens then looks at the subject, grips it, and this falls back on the autofocus technology we have, grips it, puts it into focus, makes everything fall off, and then again creates that really kind of dynamic, professional looking image within the camera.
Absolutely. I guess so if I use my water bottle as an example, this isn't as every camera that's filming me now, but when I hold my water bottle up, it's going to keep focus on my face rather than the water bottle. But there are lots of examples where I would want that, and I wouldn't have to hold it in front of my face to trick the autofocus to do it. But I want to hold it up to the side and it to focus on it. And it's basically a little toggle to say prioritize the person or prioritize
the product,
the object that you're holding up.
Correct.
Which is so useful because take the coffee shop example that we've been saying throughout the whole thing, holding up a bag of coffee beans. If I hold it up here and this is my coffee beans, I want it to pull focus to the coffee beans.
And also you want that to do it, simply. You don't want to have to, you're holding a camera in hand, you're holding a product in hand, there's a lot going on. You want it to work and be reliable in terms of it working. it will do it. And there's loads of examples out there of it doing extremely well. And that again falls back on the AI technology, sort of the autofocus technology that we have, which we are, the mirrorless technology. We've been doing that for over a decade now. Really honed in on that kind of autofocusing technology, which we're allowed to sort of develop this within the ZV range. Correct.
Absolutely, and it, unlike the shallow depth of field bokeh control one, which is quite, once you learn a little bit more about, like you said, the exposure triangle and what aperture does and the effect on your image, it's quite easy to do that without the need of having this mode. Whereas the object, the product demonstration one, is actually quite hard to do through autofocus without having this push to button. You've got to go in and turn off face and eye detection, then you've got to up the subject response speed, and you've got to change your focus area and all of this sort of stuff. It's quite involved, the process to tweak the autofocus to do what you want it to do, which when you're filming yourself is just slow.
Yeah, exactly.
Who wants to do that?
It's added time to the whole process. And I think if you look at small business owners as an example here, they're doing a lot. They're doing a lot. They're pushed to do a lot, as business owners. They're not just producing their own marketing content, they're also running a business. They're doing their accounts, they're probably managing staff. There's loads of elements there. So the simpler it can be made in terms of producing that content, the better it is for them, and also reliable. So sometimes simpler isn't always reliable. It kind of will get halfway there, not there, but it's simpler but massively reliable as well, which is great.
So the last thing I guess I want to talk about is the ZV range is not the only range of Sony products which is popular in this space. The normal alpha cameras, A7 Mark IV, A7S Mark III, they are very, very popular in that space as well, and historically have really been popular. And also the FX cameras, FX30, FX3 are very popular, particularly for the sort of higher end people in this space. What do we think, I guess, is the turning point where you would transition from the ZV range to either of those two options?
Ooh, that's quite a broad question. So if I was, who would we use as an example as a profile? Let's say like a content creator, or maybe sort of a
coffee shop?
Yeah, let's go.
I like coffee.
Let's go. I like coffee too. Let's go coffee shop owner. So you start off as an independent coffee shop owner. It's just you and maybe a family member running this coffee shop, and you pick up a ZV-1, and that's kind of the starting point on your creative journey. You're honing all the features, you're producing great content, and your business is scaling, and you realise, okay, right, I want to do a little bit more with the content I'm creating. Or maybe I want to bring in someone else that can do a little bit more with the content that I'm creating.
That, I think, is the turning point. As soon as it's somebody else touching that camera or helping you, as soon as somebody is existing behind the camera in some way, not necessarily a paid for professional camera operator that you're paying a day rate to come in and create the video content for you, but somebody else is there behind the camera doing that. That's when I think the differences between them become more
apparent, and useful. Yeah, and I think you would then go, so you'd start on the ZV-1 or ZV-1 or ZV-2, you kind of start there, you're producing content, you then maybe bring someone else in, and then with that bringing someone else in is all of a sudden you're not just shooting yourself and the product, you're maybe shooting, varied subjects, so then it's the consideration between a different lens set. It's like, okay, I'm going to now need to add different lenses because I want to create a slightly different look. So then you need to look at an interchangeable lens system, which would be like the E10. So then there's a real jumping point between the ZV-1 into the E10, and then as you progress from there, you could then kind of go to full frame if you wanted to, because you want to really enrich the say for instance your coffee shop really scales up and you're kind of a watch house or on par with Starbucks or something like that, and you're now producing content for a range of franchisee stores in a small geographic area. You're then going to need content, or then going to need a camera or cameras that are more capable of producing that professional look, and so that's where the changing point would be. If you were a content creator, and I think we've seen this a lot, you can go online and you can look at a broad range of content creators and go back over a few years, and you can see, they pick up a they pick up an E1, they pick up a ZV-1, and then as we've started to introduce these new products, they've then kind of added new products to their arsenal. So we go back to like Constantine as an example, using everything through from the ZV-1 all the way through to the FX30, the FX3, which is like incredible to produce his own content and stuff. So I think as these content creators scale, there's more of a demand on their credibility as a video producer. So with that, they're then going to need more credible equipment that's going to allow them to produce that high-end content. So the cameras have to naturally change with them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the key is, is content king, is quality king.
Yeah.
And for a lot of these kind of customers, content is absolutely king, and there's not necessarily going to be somebody behind the camera controlling it. You're going to be going there, controlling it, setting it up, and then going back in front of the camera to do your yoga routine or grind your coffee beans.
And then getting yourself back into position. And I think, even if you start off as that one-man band kind of producing it, as you move through the range, you're not losing stuff. If anything, you're gaining features all the time. So everything that's good in that original product, you still have that's consistent through the ZV range. So like the framing, to be able to create that kind of multiple sort of angle, like multiple feed shot, you start to add those in, so you're not losing stuff as you progress, so you're able to keep the stuff that you're familiar with and you're comfortable with, and then add new elements into it as your skill set progresses within that.
Absolutely. And I think the alpha range, let's take the A6700 for example. Essentially the same sensor as the ZV-E10 Mark II. One is designed for hybrid and one is designed for this kind of content creation. And I guess as soon as you want to hold the camera up to your eye to take photographs, that's when you want the A6700.
Correct. That's when you'd move into that alpha range.
Exactly. Which is still very relevant for these, but of course these cameras also have the stills mode in. It's just that you lose the viewfinder.
Exactly, yeah. So we talked about not having a viewfinder. Just not having a viewfinder doesn't mean you lose the ability to take stills.
Absolutely.
That's still there. You can still do it. You do it in a slightly different way in terms of taking it on the screen rather than be able to look through a viewfinder. I think the other thing to add into all of these is like from an accessory perspective. So these are designed to point at yourself or to point at other people. So there's a range of grips that we have that give you full control of the products, and that's something that you wouldn't get on a traditional stills camera. So you'd have a grip with a record button, additional kind of like audio equipment and a whole new range of audio microphones that are designed specifically for these cameras, and again, that's going to make sure you're producing the best possible content. I think people are like, okay, right, video is key, we need to produce video. Audio is super important as well, but then also ergonomics is really important. Is it easy to film myself and get good content and good audio to then be able to put this out there? So
cool. Absolutely. I mean, for anyone that is creating content like that, these are a really easy recommendation, because there's very few products on the market that are designed for that kind of market, and these have got so many features that make your life a lot easier.
Yeah, super easy. I think, the ZV-1 I'm super familiar with, and I really love the product itself. If I go away, that's the product I take with me. It's super easy. I can hand it to my daughter. She knows how to use it. She's not intimidated by it. I can produce a bit of video with it. I can produce stills of it. It does a huge deal. And going back to the days where we were kind of all locked inside producing video content, the reason I picked up that camera is because I needed an additional feed for my Blackmagic to be able to do a multiple feed camera setup. It has a HDMI out feed, so I could purchase this camera, add it into, at the time I was using an A7 Mark III, so I had two A7 Mark IIIs and then a ZV-1, and I had an additional feed, which was great. It's a really affordable camera, but I could stick it in amongst a multi-feed setup and be able to control it in a similar way that we're doing here. So really, really good range of products.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, I think let's leave it there. I mean, thank you so much for that. So the next ones that we're going to do, because this is the start of this little sort of series that we're going to do, and probably the most ambiguous. This is really the one that is designed to fit around the products, really, rather than the audience, just because it's such a wide demographic of people. The next couple are going to be a bit more focused. Right, so wildlife we're going to do, and weddings we're going to do.
Correct.
Some of the most long-standing, styles of work in our industry, right?
And a real demand in terms of the products you need to shoot. Like I go
Yeah.
and speak to wedding photographers, and out of the wedding photographers I speak to, they'll probably use 3 lenses. Between I could go and speak to 20 wedding photographers, and between the 20, like they'll all use the 3 same lenses. So we're going to hone into what those lenses would be, why they have those lenses, how those lenses allow them to produce the work, and then the bodies and stuff that they'll use. And same with the wildlife. Very specific need set in terms of what you're trying to capture. These are designed to really hit a broad coverage. In terms of what they can do. Whereas, when you're focusing on shooting birds, for instance, most birds act in similar ways. So you need specific tools that allow you to capture that. Most weddings kind of have the same sort of flavour. So you need a specific set of tools that really hone in on capturing that. So yeah, the next ones will be really drilled in and specific.
Fantastic. So yeah, thank you for coming back to ProAV for the day.
My pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Keep an eye out for those next ones in the next couple of months. I think we're also going to do an in-person open event here in the showroom.
Correct.
I think next month, where we're just going to invite Sony customers in. Basically, you can have a sensor clean and a bit of an MOT done on your camera while you're here, and we'll have a full range of all these cameras and lenses and everything like that for people to try out as well. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, for now, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon.
astonishing.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Three, two, one, action.
Meet SWIT's latest RGBW panel innovations, the Van Gogh 70 and Van Gogh 100 LED panels. The Van Gogh series uses exclusive edge-mounted RGBW SMD LEDs, which results in an extremely thin 21mm LED panel that is fanless, making zero noise on set. The time division drive technology makes Van Gogh up to 60% brighter than its competitors in RGB mode. You can count on extreme color accuracy with a very high CRI and TLCI. Thinner, lighter, brighter, and quieter, these are the Van Gogh Ultra Slim RGBW panels by SWIT.